Cops and Demons, Episode 2, Dealing with Demons.
Today is October 15th, 2019, and this is recording 2 of an unknown number documenting the end of the world. Now, before I start recording more memories, may I encourage any of our educators listening to pay close attention. It's not every day that we get to have such a first-hand account of world-changing events, and knowing management, the recording will end up classified within the next month. So take laborious notes. You never know what you might discover if you listen carefully. Dimitri wished she had brought a heavier jacket. She rubbed her arms. Out of the forest, it would be around 3 o'clock and sunny. Here, it was dark and cold. She kept still, watching the edge of the warehouse from beyond the curve of the road. Her body shook, and she patted her cheeks. No, the day was great. Despite losing her compact, Chatsy had caught her at the station, and now she would thoroughly enjoy kicking the tushes of these dirty kidnappers. The thought of tackling a fat, hairy tub of scum made her feel extremely cheerful, so she continued to rub her arms and watch the building. In the distance, she saw Kyle and Tom go around one end, moving low beneath one of the windows and waiting. Tom tilted his head, hand on the pocket she assumed his compact was in. He gave a nod to Kyle. Fisting the glove that made the pepper bombs, he baseball threw it at the window. A stream of smoke shot inside. Even from a distance, she heard shouts of confusion. Pulling down masks, Tom and Kyle jumped in through the window. Dimitri pulled down her own mask in preparation, pressed the rune against her jacket collar, and felt it stiffen to Kevlar.
Please, hands up and on your knees!
Not a step, you no good child
Move
thief!
it, pretty boy!
Smoke drifted from the broken window. That's when something caught Dimitri's eye. On the second floor, a window was pushed open. An older man slid out. He was balding on top and wore a white vest and black shirt. He looked furious. He had a hand across the face of a young girl. She looked 18 maybe, with short black hair, wearing jeans and a blue t-shirt. She fought him as he yanked her out the window and onto the edge of the roof. They jumped. The two of them dropped, landing in a pile of bushes. She saw his lips move in a curse. Dimitri's hand went to her pocket and she cursed herself. She couldn't tell anyone inside that this guy was slipping away with a hostage. But he was on foot. She'd be able to handle him. She sank further back behind the branches as she watched him move, dragging the girl with him. He limped towards some thick bushes on the other side of the road, just before the wall started. A sinking feeling entered her stomach as she saw him pull out a motorcycle. Angel sneezes. If he got too fast on that thing, she'd never be able to catch him. He threw the girl in front of him on the bike and revved it. The wheels spun and the two of them started to fly down the path. This was gonna hurt.
3, 2, and 1.
Her timing was just a little off, so instead of hitting him square in the side, she hit the back of his head with her feet. They all rolled. The bike slid to the side and the two passengers tumbled from it. Practice saved Dimitri a little pain. Instead of skidding against the ground like the other two, she curled and went into a roll, banging her arm, calf, and then hitting her back against the far wall. But they were only bruises. She was back up on her feet in the next moment, looking for the hostage. The man and woman were a couple feet away. The kidnapper had scraped his arm and it was bleeding. To Dimitri's surprise, however, he was already grabbing for the girl who was trying to crawl away. Help! Her eyes were wide and filled with fear as she looked back towards him. Dimitri darted in. She grabbed his wrist and wrenched it back, putting him in an arm lock. Then, for good measure, she sat on his back.
A cop.
He sneered at her.
Don't you have a donut to go eat? I'm rather busy at the moment.
Dimitri blinked at him. It took her a moment to catch up with his taunt. She gave him a grin.
Actually, that sounds like a great idea of something to do after work. Whoa!
The man tried to kick her from behind, and she glanced at the girl.
Wanna come? We have some great pastries at the mini market.
Beneath her, the man shifted. Dimitri found herself rising into the air.
Ah!
The sound of his anger sent a flash of surprise and fear through her. Out of instinct, she wrapped her legs around his middle, trying to keep a hold on his arm.
Ah! Little woman, you're going to let go, or you'll get hurt.
Dimitri fumbled with her other hand, reaching for her taser glove. They both hurtled backwards, and Dimitri turned in time to see the wall behind her. She let go and rolled to the side, yanking out her taser glove as she did it. Her feet went over her head and then back to the ground, where she sprang up and slid the glove on, fastening Velcro. She pulled out her gun with her other hand.
Mister, you're under arrest for the kidnapping of...
She glanced around. The girl had run down the path. The man's eyes followed hers towards the hostage. Ignoring her, he bolted after.
Crud.
Dimitri ran after him. What had been with that strength? He should have been pinned to the ground. He stopped suddenly, sticking out his arm.
Oof!
His elbow caught her right in the stomach. He grabbed her arm and shoulder, swinging her to the side. She stumbled, dragged along. At the same time, she activated her glove.
Ah!
His grip loosened, but the next moment she caught sight of the far wall. Unable to stop the momentum, she jumped up and forward at the last moment, feet hitting the wall instead of her face. She used it as a platform and sprang back, reversing the momentum to shove herself against the man. He stumbled back. She held onto his shoulders and flipped boots overhead, activating the taser glove a second time.
Ah!
She fell back and landed on her feet. The man turned around and swiped at her, but she was wary this time, darting back before he'd even fully turned. He rubbed at his shoulder, murder in his eyes.
It would seem I was mistaken. You're not a cop. You're a circus rat.
Circus rat? Circus rat! Actually, it would be really cool to work in a circus. Dimitri gave a half bow as she scratched the back of her head.
Well, it's really just a hobby.
On another note, weren't these tasers supposed to, she didn't know, knock people out? What was this guy made out of? Kevlar and mortar brick snark? The man's eyes narrowed. They were filled with annoyance. The hostage had stopped a distance away. She hovered, looking afraid to go any farther. He glanced at the girl.
I don't have time for this.
His eyes went back to Dimitri.
If you step aside, I will make it worth your while.
He reached up and adjusted his collar, which had gone askew.
You little cops have gotten yourselves involved in things far more dangerous than you can handle.
He smiled at her.
It would benefit you both physically and financially not to get in my way.
Dimitri blinked. She raised her gun and trained it on him.
If you think I'm gonna let a guy who kidnaps kids get away, you've got another thing coming. Hands up.
The man scowled, raising his hand slowly. Dimitri motioned her gun to the side.
Turn around. Keep your hands above your head and put them on the wall.
The kidnapper did as she asked, but there was murder in his eyes as he moved. She kept her gun trained on him, reaching for her handcuffs. She was glad this was over. She holstered her gun just before grabbing one of his wrists. It was hairier than she'd expected, a thick layer over his arms and the top of his hand. She grimaced. That was a little gross. Something brushed her side. She looked down.
Huh?
A long, hairy tail was wrapped around the butt of her gun. It came from the man's jacket.
What the...
The gun flew from her holster. Dimitri grabbed at it, but it landed in the man's hand. Her eyes widened. The butt of the gun slammed against her head. She dropped. Dimitri landed on her side, hand over face. She looked up to glimpse the monkey man's furious expression. She saw his foot rush toward her. When Dimitri woke, she felt woozy. The tree canopy spun above her head when she opened her eyes. She raised a hand to her head.
Ow.
It came away with a little bit of blood. She looked around. There was no sign of either the kidnapper or the hostage. The motorcycle was gone too. Shakily, she stood up. The dusty road gave no sign of what had happened after she'd been knocked out. She reached for her pocket. She should see how much time had passed. She mentally kicked herself again. Right. No compact. Fingers clenched. No kidnapper. She looked down the darkened road. No hostage. Her fingers uncurled as a pang of guilt ran through her. That poor girl. She'd failed her. At this point, she had two options. She could try to follow the kidnapper down the road herself, but he was on a bike. Depending on how long she'd been out, he could already be on the highway. She'd have no chance of catching him on foot there. Not that she'd have much of a chance catching him on foot here. She turned back to the warehouse. That left her with only one other option. Head back, see what had happened with the other hostages, let Sam and the others know the man had gotten away, and regroup to track the... Her forehead creased. Monkey man? She'd never seen anything like that. Sure, Transformers gave people similar attributes to animals, like night vision or enhanced strength, but it wasn't like it changed them physically. She started to walk back towards the warehouse, and that man hadn't acted like he was high on a Transformer. She checked her holster as she walked.
Ugh.
She put a hand to her forehead. Even better, her gun was gone too. It was quiet when she got to the warehouse. That confirmed a few of her worries. It had been a long while. They had probably finished the raid and packed up. She reached the building and took a peek through a window. Inside she saw Sam. There were 2 other men standing in the warehouse room, hands handcuffed behind their backs. Chatsy held the elbow of one of them. Sam was walking back from the front doors. She glanced at the sheriff.
Anything from George and the others yet?
Sam shook his head, scowling. Dimitri sighed and ran a hand through her hair. Should she call out to them, or should she procrastinate a couple seconds more before telling them she had failed to protect her post? She glanced back. A shadow moved in the back corner of the room.
Huh?
Dimitri's mouth hovered as the shadow stretched out and flowed along the side of the room until it was right behind Chatsy. It rose off the ground and started to form into a shape. Dimitri's mind went blank in shock, and the next moment a hand struck the backside of Chatsy's head. She crumpled. Dimitri jerked forward.
You idiots!
Dimitri blinked in surprise. It was tall, 7 feet at least, with fiery orange and red fur with black spots on its arms and legs. The limbs were long, too long, and painfully thin, like there was hardly any muscle at all. The claws glinted in the light, and the muzzle flashed fangs as it sneered at the others. 3 blood-red eyes glowed from its face. Sam took a step back, his face blanching. Dimitri dropped beneath the window, slapping a hand across her face to keep from crying out. That was a demon! Adrenaline pumped through her, and suddenly everything was shaky. Her hand trembled over her mouth. Her legs felt weak. She had to clench her teeth to keep them from chattering.
If I was smart, I would have devoured you all when I first saw you. Get them out of those things.
Yes, Ava.
Wait, what? What was Sam doing? Dimitri dared to peek through the window, and she saw Sam unlock the handcuffs of the 2 other men. One was barely more than a kid, maybe 18. The other was a tall man in a trench coat, hair tied in a loose, short ponytail. He rubbed his wrist and glanced warily at the demon.
Don't worry, we can make up the shipment easily. The cops will be satisfied this is all over now.
Shipment? She glanced at Sam in disbelief again. This couldn't be right. He seemed grateful that the other man had drawn the demon's attention away from him. Suddenly, the meaning of shipment hit her like a ton of bricks. The kidnapped kids made so much more sense. Demons ate souls, especially pure souls.
They'd better be.
She stepped forward, hovering over them.
If that shipment isn't delivered, it'll be you on the chopping block.
The demon lifted a claw and clicked them together.
And if those police don't back down after this, I want their heads on a platter.
Well, crud. She needed to get out of here.
Dimitri got on her hands and knees, crawling toward the other side of the warehouse.
If that's what you want, you better keep your people in line, Sammy.
She needed to get back to the cop cars. If they saw her here, they would kill her. A sudden thought hit her as she passed the window. What about Chatsy? What were they going to do to her?
What do we tell her when she wakes up?
It was as if Sam had read her mind. Dimitri glanced through the window. The demon eyed the unconscious officer.
This building will be burning when she wakes up. These 2 got away. You could barely save her from the flames after they blew it up. Got it?
The red eyes locked on Sam. He gave her a nervous smile and nodded quickly, hurrying to the side and grabbing Chatsy under the armpits. Dimitri held her breath, relief flowing through her. She could go then. She ducked under the window.
You 2 prep the building. As for me, I have a snack to pick up.
The demon dropped to all 4s. Dimitri frowned. Wait, why had she turned in this direction? Dimitri's stomach dropped as the 3 eyes turned to her. How had she... The creature scuttled across the floor like a spider, limbs blurring as it came straight for her. Dimitri bolted. She wouldn't make it to the trail. If she cut through the forest, barely even thinking, she jumped, caught the edge of the forest wall, and heaved herself over it. She rolled into a run the moment her feet hit the grass on the other side. It was darker inside the forest. The canopy was thicker. The grass was waist high in some places, and there were bushes everywhere. She glanced back as she ran. The creature's mouth was stretched wide in a horrifying, fanged grin that seemed far too big for its muzzle. The red eyes were wide and wild with excitement. Its spider crawled over the wall and dashed through the greenery. Dimitri jumped, grabbing the branch of a tree in front of her. The large spidery fox demon crawled past her, unable to slow in time. Dimitri swung herself up and climbed higher before jumping to another tree. She couldn't see the ground now.
She couldn't see the demon.
She jumped to the next tree.
Desperate little thing. You smell delicious. Hop, hop away, or the scary demon's gonna get ya.
A branch fell behind her. Dimitri moved faster. Just as she hoped, she caught sight of the forest wall.
Boom!
Ah! It suddenly jumped up beside her. Panic stabbed through her. She lost her balance. Dimitri landed in a bed of undergrowth. Wisps buzzed around her head and fled.
Oops! You didn't die with that fall, did you? I'm just getting started.
The red eyes narrowed. She'd managed to twist her ankle in the fall. Each step was a stab of agony. She fought the limp. The wall was just a few feet away. Adrenaline was on her side now as she forced herself into a dead run. A blazing wall of flames erupted on the top of the forest wall. Dimitri stumbled. No. No, no, no!
Oh no! So close. Drat. Well, now I guess you'll have to die.
The demon dropped to the ground and lurked closer. Even as she panted in terror, there was something that just pissed her off about that. First it had slunk its way into their peaceful city. Then it had stole children to sate its disgusting appetite. And now it was playing with her life like it was a toy. She turned to look at the demon. She glared, meeting its eyes deliberately. The demon grinned, flashing its fangs. Like fluffy bunny butts was she gonna give it the satisfaction. Dimitri screwed her face and stuck out her tongue. Then she turned and ran, leapt for the branch closest to the wall and swung herself through the wall of flames.
Ah!
The fire, well, burned. Her coat caught fire as she passed through. She felt the heat go through to one of her arms and down her bad leg. Then she was hitting the ground in a roll for the third time in the past hour.
You actually jumped! Oh man, that was wild!
Dimitri continued to roll. She struggled to her feet, batting at her pants as she limped towards her and Chatsy's car. She yanked the door open and grabbed her spare pistol just as the demon crawled through the flames, grinning. She turned. 3 red eyes gleamed at her. Dimitri sucked in a panicked breath. She almost froze. It ducked and jumped to the side.
Whoa! Almost! Try again!
The demon zipped low on the ground to the other side. Each step brought it closer.
You're not very good at this, are you?
It jumped again, but jerked and curled in on itself when it hit the ground.
You weakling! You actually hit me!
It withered on the ground.
A pathetic human wounded me!
Its claws were clutching its chest. She'd hit it? She blinked, arms lowering slightly. The demon rolled, leapt into the air, and landed on the top of the cart. Dimitri whirled.
Just kidding.
It grinned. Claws went out and closed around the barrel of her gun. Her heart stopped. She dropped the gun and dove into the car. There had to be something else she could use. Anything! If Shirley had the keys! The roof was ripped off the top of the car. The demon smirked down at her.
And just where do you think you're going?
Long claws shredded the chairs until they reached her. One closed around her ankle.
Ah!
She was dragged out of the car, the claws biting into her skin. The second one reached and grasped her arm.
Oh, that was fun. It's been a while since anything put up a good fight.
Let go of me!
She knew it was futile, but she swung a fist at the demon's face. The demon just leaned back a bit.
And still fighting! What a lively cat you are!
The creature started to drag her across the ground and back to the warehouse. Dimitri thrashed. Blood was dripping down her leg. The claws only dug in deeper as she fought. They reached the door of the warehouse and the demon yanked it open, throwing her into the room.
Delivery!
She skidded across the floor. Dimitri tried to get up. Sam's eyes were open wide in surprise. The trenchcoat guy stood at the far end, messing with wires in a box of explosives. Chatsy was slumped by the door. Dimitri glared at Sam.
You! How could you?
The demon's claw was suddenly in front of her face.
Now don't be mad at him. It's hardly his fault. He didn't have much of a choice in the matter.
The demon stepped over and patted Sam like he was a child. He gave the demon a nervous look.
It's not like he could say no after all.
The demon grinned down at him and licked its lips with a forked tongue.
So, would you rather bleed to death or have your neck broken? I'm feeling generous after that fun. I'll kill that one first, and then you.
It pointed a claw at Chatsy. Dimitri's eyes widened.
But you said you were going to keep her alive.
She struggled to her knees.
Ugh.
She clutched at her bloody ankle. The demon shrugged.
Oh, but all the work in letting witnesses live, it's such a pain. And then there's you. I can't... Then again...
The demon raised a claw and clicked them together.
You were fun, lively, determined.
The demon's eyes focused on her.
What would you do to save your life?
Dimitri's brows went down and she glared at the demon. She wasn't stupid. She knew what the demon was hinting at. A deal for her soul. While children's souls could just be plucked out and adults could only be taken through a broken contract.
Go back to where you came from and burn.
All right, I guess you both die then.
It shrugged and took 2 steps towards Chatsy.
Don't touch her!
Dimitri rolled across the ground in front of her partner.
You don't need to do this. She hasn't seen anything.
She looked at Sam desperately. His arms were folded and his expression was bland as it met hers.
You know how to stop this.
The demon raised a brow and lifted a claw to reach around her. No, she wasn't. Dimitri grabbed the demon's arm and used her taser.
Ah!
The demon threw its arm out and easily tossed her across the room. Dimitri hit the far wall and slumped to the ground. Chatsy groaned as the demon's long, knife-like nails closed around her throat.
No! No!
She clawed at the ground. A memory flashed through her mind, the image of Chatsy's ultrasound. No, it was okay. She couldn't let that baby get hurt.
Stop. I'll make the deal.
The demon paused. It turned its fox-like head towards her.
Oh, a change of heart?
It grinned. Dimitri was shaking. Her body shivered no matter how hard she tried to stop it. She glared at the demon.
Get away from her.
All right. You want a deal to save her life? You got it.
Dimitri's mind raced. She had seconds. What she put in the contract would make all the difference.
All the cops. You can't touch them.
Well, that is such a steep request. That is doable for one such as I. And in return...
The demon glanced back at Chatsy. A slow smile spread across its face.
All I want from you is your silence.
Huh?
The sound came out before she registered it. She blinked. That was all the demon wanted? Her silence?
That's it?
Well, duh. I don't want you blabbing about what you've seen. If you want them to live and survive yourself, all you have to do
The demon slunk toward her slowly, towering above her with an evil smile.
Is take all this to your grave.
Dimitri shivered. Instinctively she knew that this was too easy. But what else could she do? She was in too much pain to think clearly, but she didn't have any more time either. Her shoulders falling, she nodded.
Then I accept.